Oh, my nigga Diamond K on the check-in. Salute Diamond K, radioonfire.com. Let me check on his site. Hold on a second. That's my homie from B-More.
You are now streaming worldwide on radioonfire.com and the Radio on Fire app.
Diamond K, are you moving to the ATL? I know you were talking about that, man, before the pandemic.
Giving you more talk, more news, and more music. It's Radio on Fire.
Okay, there you go. RadioOnFire.com. That's the homie, Diamond K.
Thank you for listening to Radio on Fire.
I see High Roller Records, Jay Jackson Live, The Diamond K Show, of course. Yeah, folks, make sure you check out my homie, RadioOnFire.com. That's Diamond K.
Follow us on all social media at Radio on Fire.
Welcome back. You man Diamond K in here. Of course, RadioOnFire.com, The Diamond K Show.com. Jam-packed show for you today, and as I said, I am excited to be here. I'm going to speak with TJ Smith a little bit later, second part of the show. We're going to talk about making Baltimore better. How can we do that? What needs to be done in order for this to happen? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about his role in the campaign of independent candidate for mayor Bob Wallace. We're going to talk about that. Of course, we know TJ Smith as the former spokesman for the Baltimore City Police Department. He also had a run as a Democrat for mayor, and we're going to talk about that. Something that is on my mind, something that is bothering me, is the lie of black on black crime. Now, what do I mean by that? Why would I say the lie of black on black crime? Let me tell you. Let me tell you why I say that. In any community that you live in, whether you live in a white community, whether you live in an Asian community, a Spanish community, or a black community, you're going to have crime. And that crime is not labeled. We don't say crime that happens in Pasadena is white on white crime. You don't say that. Crime that happens in a Spanish neighborhood, we don't say it's Spanish on Spanish crime or Mexican on Mexican crime. Only in the black community do they say black on black crime. Why is that? They're trying to shift and shape your mindset. Why do they want to do that? So they can sell you this platform. So they can sell you this propaganda about black people, right? There's not black on black crime. There is just crime. There's no need to label it with these incorrect labels. So I often hear news outlets, mainstream news outlets, talk about the black on black violence, black on black crime, brown, they say that. And it is a false statement. You have crime. In Baltimore, there is crime. We know this. This is not a secret. This is not something that is breaking news from the standpoint of people within a community committing crime. So I wanted to say that I needed to get that off my chest because a lot of outlets reporting things like that, and it's even seeped into the minds of black people, where I hear black people talking about black on black crime, whether that's Chicago, whether that is wherever they're talking about. So that bothers me, and it is a lie. It is propaganda, and it is false propaganda. So with that out of the way, you can definitely let me know your thoughts on that. Back to school continuing during this Trump virus. Many people having problems yesterday, as could be expected, considering the fact that we are starting a new system of virtual learning. For the most part, you do have people that are in the classrooms, but virtual for the most part. And so with this new system, you're going to have hiccups, you're going to have issues, you're going to have problems and kinks that people need to work through. And that is something that is happening. A lot of people had trouble logging on to the site yesterday. Some people did, some people did not. For the most part, that was remedied around 1:15, 1:30 p.m. yesterday. A lot of people that I've talked to had a better experience today on day number 2. I'd like to know your experience. Let me know your thoughts. How has your experience with this virtual learning during this Trump virus, how has that gone for you? I'd like to know about that. And if we have time, I'd like to get to it. I'm not sure if we're going to have time before we talk with TJ Smith to really get to the latest with the president. And I'd like to get to it if we can. Yeah, let's scratch that and let's get to that. All right. So Trump, the president, knowingly lied to the public. All right. If you elect a clown, expect the circus. Okay. And that's what we have, a circus. Okay. A new political firestorm has erupted in the White House. This time over President Trump knowing about the pandemic and knowing the severity of the pandemic versus what he said in public. The Washington Post reporter Bob Woodward has tape of the president privately acknowledging the seriousness of the coronavirus early in February. Okay. In recorded phone calls, President Trump told Bob Woodward that he was intentionally downplaying the coronavirus to Americans. This is in February. This is when it was, according to the president, a hoax, just like the flu, something that was going to go away. He was saying this then. And publicly saying something different, which of course caused Americans to do something different. The president told Bob Woodward in February that this was an airborne virus and it was deadly. Republicans are slow to ever criticize this president. But as a human being, how can you be okay with this? The president knew and admitted on tape that it was an airborne virus back in February and that it was deadly, worse than the flu could ever be, and that it was serious. Did I mention that he's on tape? Okay. However, he went on to hold 6 rallies, packed with people, without masks, and called the coronavirus a Democratic hoax. This was the latest Russian hoax. Remember that? You remember that, right? Trump does not care about the American people. He's worried about the stock market. He claimed today that he was, not trying to cause a panic. Okay. You mean a panic in the stock market? The president said that he did not want to cause a panic. Coronavirus was a Democratic hoax. Press Secretary McEnany said that the president never downplayed the virus. However, the president said on the tapes, I always wanted to downplay the virus. I always wanted to downplay it. I always wanted to play it down. Maybe 200,000 Americans would be alive if he had taken it more seriously. If he had taken it as seriously publicly as he did privately. For so long, I've heard defenders of the president say that you can't judge people on what they say. You have to judge them on what they do. Right? So tell me this, Trump not doing anything to warn the public is deplorable. It is evil. It is wrong. It is murderous. Additionally, he did not do what was needed behind the scenes. Because you're going to hear some of his defenders say that, he closed the borders of China, right? But behind the scenes, he caused chaos between states over PPE and an abundance of things. Even today, he downplays the coronavirus. It's time to get all the senators who stand by idly while Trump endangers the American people and stands watch while currently 190,000 Americans have died from this virus that he claimed was a hoax, even when he knew better. Trump's staff needs to be held accountable for their actions or lack thereof. It's like saying to Trump, sir, why did you disable the fire alarm? This building is on fire. And he says, I did not want to cause a panic. That is like setting these people up in this building to burn. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, at The Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. So in Baltimore, the Baltimore area, you have AMC reopening 7 theaters on tomorrow. So I'm sure that people that are anxious to go to the movies will be excited about that. AMC reopening these theaters. They're going to reopen 7 theaters in Baltimore. Locations, AMC Theater in Columbia Mall, AMC Owens Mills Security Square, the Charlestown Center location, White Marsh, Lexington Park, and the Classic in Churchville. So I'm not ready to go back to the movies. Okay, let me say that. But some people excited about going to the movies and all that good stuff. Just tuning in to the Diamond K Show here on Radio on Fire and thediamondkshow.com. Also, people that want to check out the podcast, people can check us out on demand on Stitcher, on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, rather, and wherever you get podcasts from, also on YouTube and all of that good stuff. So we're going to be joined momentarily by TJ Smith. I'm looking forward to speaking with him. And if you have questions, definitely let me know those as well. So we're going to be talking about Baltimore. How can we make Baltimore better? Does Baltimore need new leadership to become better? What does better actually mean? And is better something that is attainable? And as far as leadership, I'm talking about the mayor. Well, we are definitely going to get a new mayor, whoever that is, because the current mayor is not going to be in that position much longer. So let's do this. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back with our guest, who I see is backstage. So we're going to come back with our guest, TJ Smith, here on the Diamond K Show. Stay tuned.
Oh, my nigga Diamond K on the check-in. Salute Diamond K, radioonfire.com. Let me check on his site. Hold on a second. That's my homie from B-More.
You are now streaming worldwide on radioonfire.com and the Radio on Fire app.
Diamond K, are you moving to the ATL? I know you were talking about that, man, before the pandemic.
giving you more talk, more news, and more music. It's Radio on Fire.
Okay, there you go. RadioOnFire.com. That's the homie Diamond K.
Thank you for listening to Radio on Fire.
I see High Roller Records, Jay Jackson Live, The Diamond K Show, of course. Yeah, folks, make sure you check out my homie RadioOnFire.com. That's Diamond K.
Follow us on all social media at Radio on Fire.
And we are back. Your man Diamond K in here, and I am pleased to be joined by TJ Smith. How you doing, sir?
Hey, good evening, my man. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. No complaints. So much going on and so much to talk about with you. So you have been busy, I see.
I stay busy or try to keep busy. It's still a crazy time out there. I hope you and your family are healthy, and everyone who's watching, hopefully their families are healthy, and just have to remind people to continue to take the necessary precautions. We saw in the news today the tapes from the president who acknowledged how dangerous this disease was at the very onset of it. But of course, publicly has come out with a totally different image of it. So we can't get fooled by the okie doke and understand that us as Black people, especially with more underlying conditions, are at greater risk of contracting the disease and succumbing to the disease. So still take the necessary precautions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We talked about that. It's very unfortunate that a lot of supporters of the president are still defending his actions or lack thereof actions and his public statements. And still, even now, his stance and posture is very dismissive of this virus.
Yeah, it really is. It's mind-boggling because you kind of can deduce the rationale to a couple of things. Are these people racist? Are these people that ignorant? Is it simply selfishness because they have a 401k, and because the 401k is doing great, as long as I'm good, I don't care about anyone else. But this is so beyond Democrat and Republican.
Yes.
I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. And now you have his own words basically saying, I don't care about you. The disrespect that he showed to our troops, and then we know he lies about it. A man who was a POW for 5 years, you can hate his policies and his politics all you want. But a person who was held captive by a foreign enemy for 5 years and beaten to a point that he couldn't even raise his arms towards the end of his life is someone to be celebrated. And you don't have to like their policies, but you have to respect the person who put themselves at that level of risk. And for someone to disrespect that individual just shows the type of person they are. We shouldn't have any problems whatsoever calling ignorant what it is. And what we've seen from this president is just sheer ignorance.
Absolutely. As it relates to Baltimore, the virus affecting a lot of our businesses, a lot of the citizens. As far as masks, do you wear a mask in public?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I keep several in my car. I got a routine of washing them every few days. But every bag that I carry, just so I don't forget one, yes, I've gotten out of my car and headed towards the store, and all of us had that old crap moment where you got to turn back around and go get it. But yeah, it's uncomfortable, especially like if you're exercising or you're in it for a long period of time, but it's necessary. I mean, I don't want something that I can prevent.
Yeah. And I think that's very profound. This is preventable by our actions, as far as the social distancing and as far as the wearing of masks. And I can't stress the importance of that. I just earlier today going in the store, I got halfway throw in the parking lot. And I'm the person who likes to park far away from the door. I just trying to get steps in. I'm always counting the steps that I'm taking. I try to take as many steps. And when you get halfway across that parking lot, you got to double back. You know, it's frustrating.
It's usually
but
a
at the end of the day, it's better.
It's usually a profanity, some profane word.
Yeah,
and I don't care who you are, but you say, damn, because you got to turn around. But it's very simplistic for what we're going through, and it's simple precautions that we all can take. I still see an inordinate amount of people who try to extend their hand to shake it, shake my hand or whatever. I'm like, nah, yo, we don't do that no more. So extend the elbow. So leading by example in that way. But I've probably eaten inside of a restaurant maybe 2 or 3 times since they've reopened the interior, and the places that I've been, they have been socially distanced on the inside. But I don't mind the outdoor seating. And that's something that when I was still a candidate for mayor, I brought up back in probably early May that we needed to start, closing down streets and letting businesses erect tents and basically having sidewalk sales and expanding this sidewalk opportunity for restaurants, to get people working again and get people active again, but also being cautious because this is going to be our new normal for the foreseeable future. So let's start putting it into practice and making it part of our behavior.
You mentioned your candidacy for mayor. How has your life changed since this candidacy for the Democratic?
Since it ended? Since it ended, it has improved dramatically, a profound improvement in quality of life, quite honestly, because, I don't have that day-to-day stress of what it was to be a candidate, especially in the middle of a pandemic. I try to look at life half full. And this summer, I think I'm going to look back on years from now. As many people, it's funny because some people still have a problem reaching out to me. Like I get somebody who called me and say, I wanted to reach out to TJ, but I don't know how he feels about the election. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm good. I'm not a politician. So this wasn't my end all be all.
You said that all the time.
Exactly. So my life isn't over because of this. It's a moment and you pick up and move on. But the opportunity to have this slowdown that I've gotten a chance to spend so much time with my son. We rode 40 something miles on our bikes this past weekend. He's 8 years old. And to see him improve in his skill of being able to ride his bike, to seeing him be able to improve in his skill of swimming. We were able to go to the pool multiple days throughout the summer, several days a week. And I watched him improve in his skill set there. And the time that we got to spend together, with my other family that I was able to associate with, it's priceless. And if it were not for this virus and were not for my candidacy and were not for my loss, I wouldn't have had that moment. So I reflect on this and say, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And I'm thankful to the Lord for putting me in the position that I'm in, that I've had the means to stay home a little bit longer than maybe I would have planned, but to invest that time with my son. And that means the world to me.
Yeah, that is really good. It's unique because I think that most former candidates don't have that outlook that you have on that. But it's really making the most of and really recognizing what is really, really important in life. And I think that this pandemic, one of the bright sides, if I can use that word, that is one of the things, just really being able to recognize how fragile life really is and what is really important.
Hey, and you're right. And the thing is, when we go through these moments, like, from the moment of Kobe dying earlier this year, the pandemic, all of the different things that we've watched, the different tragedies that have taken place, and everybody says, oh, 2020, the Lord is trying to tell us something. Well, if you are really a religious or spiritual person, are you answering that call? Like, I saw how much it was a love fest for the Brandy and Monica versus, which I enjoyed thoroughly.
I did
1.2 million people watching the entire time.
Very good.
Instagram. But I saw everybody in the comments talking about how great it was. And it was a moment for me because I'm like, look at these two ladies who are right around my age. I think I'm a little older than them both, but we all around the same age. And look at these two ladies and look at them putting their differences aside so they come back 20 years later and say, look at us now, we're women. And I'm like, if we could get our men on the street to model this, imagine how much better it would be. That beef that you're going through right now, imagine if you put it aside and you could have a conversation with this guy 10 years from now. I just look at like, are we really applying all of these messages that we want to post on Instagram for other people? Are we applying that to ourselves and saying, okay, how am I going to make today better? Not only for myself, but for someone else. So I'm truly trying to stay positive. It is what it is. And I know part of what we're going to talk about, and is maybe a great segue, like the Democratic nominee is somebody I'll say consider a friend. And this is not a personal animosity or any type of personal beef. It's business. And I use the analogy, and that goes to my support for Bob Wallace for mayor. I'll use the analogy. I've had several friends like you do. And you know your friends well. And there's certain friends you can depend on for certain things. You have a friend who, if you ask them to pick you up at the airport and your flight arrives at 10, they're going to be there at 9:30 because the flight might get there early. You have some friends that you ask them to be there, your flight comes in at 10, they're going to be there at 11. Well, I figured you had to get your bags and everything. You're like, come on, man, you got me sitting there for an hour and a half because the plane got here early. That's not the friend I would necessarily ask to pick me up. I'm going to ask the one that's going to be there early to pick me up. Yeah. And that's how I look at this whole thing with politics, man. It's not personal, it's business. And who I believe the right person at this particular time to handle the problems that we face in this city is Bob Wallace. So I know that's something we're going to talk about tonight.
So yes, that is an excellent segue. So for people that are just tuning in, I'm talking with TJ Smith, and we are diving into his support for independent candidate Bob Wallace for mayor of Baltimore. And is Bob Wallace somebody that you've known for a long time?
Somebody I knew prior to my candidacy. He's a Poly graduate. I was a Poly student for a couple of years, and saw him at the Poly alumni dinners over the years. And when I had an opportunity to talk to him and get to know him, I was like, wow, this is somebody I could support. So we, in a way, had a pact almost. Like if I win, I had a position in mind from like CFO, CAO in Baltimore City, because I knew that he could excel at that role. And it was like winning for me to have someone of his caliber join my administration. And if I did not win, I was willing to support him in his independent bid to become mayor. Now, being an independent in Baltimore, anywhere really in the country, but certainly Baltimore, is a struggle. But what's I think very important about this candidacy, he's the first independent ever to actually be on the ballot. This is not a write-in campaign. So he's actually on the ballot. He'll be one of the 4 names in the box for mayor for people to select. So that in and of itself shows a different level of momentum. And really, my candidacy was based around we need to go outside of the norm of the status quo politics that we're dealing with in order to put this jolt to this city that we really need. And it would have been counterintuitive for me to support the system that's currently in place. It's been in place. If I wouldn't have run for office if I believed the current system that's in place was what would be best for the city of Baltimore. So all of that played into my decision making. I'm not a guy that has this big ego. It doesn't matter to me. I just play my role, play my part. I want to do whatever I can to help, because at the end of the day, I have so many friends on social media who've lost their children. And it's the most heartbreaking shit you can imagine. I apologize for the language. It's the most heartbreaking thing you can imagine, day in and day out, seeing these parents cry over their children that have been lost over years, and some more recently than not. and the lack of intensity that we see in the city to really progress. And crime is one element of this. And we can't get so fixated on crime that we're not worried about everything else that are really contributing factors to crime.
So we would agree that crime is a factor.
The factor.
And so the driving force of crime from where I sit is economics.
Yes.
So we agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's and so Mr. Wallace's background is in business.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think that positions him best to lead the city? Is it the business background that you think can improve the economics of citizens?
Yeah, well, even bigger than that, the fact that he's done business around the world, global business already, that's what we need. We need business investors to come into Baltimore and grow economic opportunities. And again, that's your long game. We keep talking about the investment in schools, which is 100% necessary, but we have to invest in economic opportunity. The more families that are coming up with opportunities to own homes, with opportunities to have good paying jobs, the opportunities to send their kids to college if that's what they choose to do, and not have to come home straddled in debt, the better off we're going to be. And that really, goes back to one of the old presidents. It's the economy, stupid. It is absolutely the economy. We look at Baltimore, a city of haves and have-nots. And today, Bob and I were walking around a community. He's walking around every zip code in the city, and I get out to as many as I can with him. And we walked for 2 hours in Bel Air Edison today, and we went into the Mayfield community, and you watched the transition. I watched from trash in the streets and some of the Bel Air Edison proper areas to Mayfield, fine manicured lawns, the single family homes. And you're like, wow, birds chirping in a totally different world. Baltimore has been a haves and have-not city since I've been alive. Yeah. I've seen it and I watch it. And this day, I think it's pretty funny because some of the criticism that both Bob and I get is we've lived places other than Baltimore City. Well, one of the reasons we send our children to college and many people say you need to go away for college is to learn independence and see something else and interact with other people who aren't like you. And that's what's necessary because we've been living in the same rut, in the same environment for so long. And we look at our communities and the communities that have been struggling are the community that was struggling 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Yeah. And you know this better than anyone, as we've talked about this for the last couple of years. Hey, you knuckleheads. And we look at the streets and the neighborhoods that were mentioned back in 1996, and we go look at them today. These areas still have a lot of the same socioeconomic problems that they had then. That's a problem. That's a failure in leadership over time.
I absolutely agree with that. And I guess that my concern, and I will have the privilege of speaking with Mr. Wallace on Friday. I guess my concern is always about the policies and the individual more than any other label, whether it's Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. It's about the policies and the individual implementing the policies, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of Republicans that are trying to, Kimberly Classic and her whole shock campaign, which I'm not a fan of, and the president and disparaging Baltimore, right?
Right.
Their whole thing is Democrats have been running, try something new. They've been running the place into the ground. And it's been the people that have been at the helm.
Leadership.
Not the policies of Democrats, but the people that have been in charge of implementing those policies, right? So that's my issue.
Yeah, it's if you look at Baltimore politics, Maryland politics for that matter, but Baltimore in particular, the when you see political squabbles, it's Democrat on Democrat. It isn't about the party because Baltimore is basically a mini Washington D.C. but it's all Democrat. It doesn't matter. The people in the communities where there's violence, where there's trash, where there's lack of opportunity, whatever it might be, they aren't asking a Democrat or a Republican to fix their issues. They're asking a leader to help fix their issues. And we get so caught up, like, with Kim Klacik and with Donald Trump, with what they're saying. I don't see the solutions. Like,
they don't have any.
Yeah. You don't. I don't. We don't need to. We can sit here and talk all day about what the problems are, but how do we fix those problems? And what can we do to invest in fixing those problems? And that's kind of what I look at things with Bob, with creating his plan to create 100,000 jobs in the city. More people working good jobs and having opportunity at good jobs, it equals less crime, period. It equals less
That's
crime, period. And as you grow your tax base in the city, it allows you to do more things. And to be able to do more things like pave roads and clean the streets or what have you, it makes it a more inviting city, which continues to grow the tax base, whether it's through tourism or through residency taxes and all. So the president is in a position, and Bob released a statement the other day and talked about, hey, you know what? I don't care about this divisive politics of, you think Democrats aren't doing enough and you think Republicans are doing or would do the job. Okay, well, here are 3 tangible things that you can do from your perch in the White House that can impact Baltimore right now for years to come. And if you want to talk about, the racial segregation that we still are feeling the effects of in the city, let's get some money earmarked to break down the redlining that is handicapped sections of Baltimore. And we can specifically make sure we're churning out more Black millionaires and entrepreneurs in the city of Baltimore. We don't need to talk about the trash and the rodents and the rats and the vacant homes. It didn't just happen overnight. And I'm not the guy that's going to simply put that on the previous administration or the people that are in current leadership. However, I will say that I haven't seen the intensity of a plan from the current administration to really go out and address it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not something that happened overnight. It's something that has consistently. There's been a lot of cronyism and just things over time. How do you, or would you advise Mr. Wallace to come into a space where he is an outsider? And a lot of the cronies, whether the mayor changes, the mayor is going to change, but a lot of the cronies are still going to be there. So how would you advise him to maneuver in these shark infested waters?
Well, you have to work with the people that are in, and again, that also requires working across the aisle. We can't have an adversarial relationship with the governor simply because the governor is a Republican, and for that matter, the president, because we need those resources in a city that's struggling. So it's to our advantage to have as good of a relationship with whomever are in those positions, because we need those resources to really pull a struggling city up and out of the mess that it's been in. But you have to work with the folks, but you set the tone, you set the culture, and you can look at coaches that come in and inherit teams that could be the Bad News Bears. And that coach is the person that can motivate everybody and get them on the same sheet of music to help push forward an agenda. Of course, it's going to be challenging, and that doesn't change overnight, but you have to work with people. And that was my thing when I was running as well. Got to work with these folks. And there's happy medians everywhere. There's some people that are staunchly for certain things, and they're very linear in what they're staunch for, that I personally agree with. If we sat down at the table and stopped going to Twitter like children and discussed it, we probably would get much further than we actually are getting by not having these conversations. So I think we need an adult in the room. We need somebody who can bring people together and really find that happy median. And we have to check ourselves. And remember, when I was a law enforcement officer, I would remind young officers, when you have a bad day, think of that moment when you got hired or you went through the interview process And the question was posed to you, why do you want to do this job? And you said, 99% of the people, to help people. That's what you say. Remember that. On the hardest day, remember what you're in this for. And elected officials have to check that at the door as well and say, why am I doing this? To help people, to advance the agenda of Baltimoreans. And we shouldn't govern in Baltimore like we're seeing nationally, where the president is governing for simply his base and not for the rest of the country. He's not trying to govern for Democrats. He's trying to govern simply for his base. And that's not how you govern. I didn't want to govern for people who voted for me. I wanted to govern for everyone and bring you in and say, yeah, you were right. I'm sorry. I was wrong not to vote for you. That's a great seal of approval, a stamp of approval for me.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. What do you say to the folks that may think that Mr. Wallace and Brandon Scott would split the vote and allow for?
It won't happen. Won't happen. I'm not even going to let you finish the question.
Okay.
It will not happen. Not a chance. It won't happen. That Republican won't win in Baltimore City. And I hate to be that dismissive, but that's just the reality. That's just a math problem. They will not split the votes in that regard, not in the general election. In the primary election, with the field being as large as it was, you can argue that every day. You can argue, people had different arguments about different people and who they were going to take votes from if they were in the conversation. But for this one, no, it's not.
So are you saying that a Republican can't win in City Hall in Baltimore, or you're saying that the Republican who's running can't win?
No, I don't think a Republican can win in Baltimore right now. It's just,
okay.
Again, it's a sheer numbers thing. And you look at the fact that the president and his unfavorability is going to hurt Republicans, period, anywhere in the state. And a state that's blue. Maryland is a blue state, regardless of who the governor is.
Right.
So, if they don't have enough money to message that they're independent from this president, I don't know that Baltimore is a President Trump city. And I can say that pretty emphatically that it is not. So this city hasn't evolved into a true Democrat versus Republican. However, I do believe having a title of independent and understanding that there are ideas that you can take from both sides that can ultimately make for a better city. The issues of Baltimore City, again, are not Democrat, Republican. They really are independent issues. The trash that isn't getting picked up, the water bill that's excessively high and wrong all the time. It's process stuff. So I look at a business-minded individual who has successfully run several businesses and companies, understanding how to fix these processes. Most people, believe it or not, as much as we talk about violence, most Baltimoreans are going to be pissed off because the taxes are too high, because the trash didn't get picked up, because the water bill is outrageous. It's these quality of life things. When they ride out of the community, they hit a pothole. That's the stuff that ticks people off in an equal way as crime. The crime for a lot of people is something that you see on the news. It's not something that directly impacts a lot of people, believe it or
not. That is true. I mean, as far as an advisor, I don't think that he could pick someone who was more in touch with the problems and the solutions. That part I'm not worried about. You definitely embody that. I guess my concern is just being able to implement these things and get them done. With regards to, and we haven't really mentioned it, but with regards to the police department, there is a disconnect there, I think, between City Hall and the police department. How would you advise him to bridge that gap?
Well, that's a process, and I want to give an analogy that people can understand. If you've ever cheated on your significant other or your significant other ever cheated on you, how long does it take to regain that trust again? Are you going out the following week saying I'm going to the pool hall with my boys and that's where you got caught cheating last week? No, it ain't going to be an easy conversation with an old lady, is it? So it takes time to rebuild that trust. So again, we can't think that it's going to happen overnight, but we have to continue to implement policies that show that we understand that there is a disconnect. And moreover, we have to show that we've learned and we are showing that we understand and comprehend what those problems are through the actions of the law enforcement agency. So it's really embracing the reform efforts that are taking place. And what I feel and what I see as I move about the city, and this is during my time as a candidate, during my time as spokesperson, and right now, people don't want to abolish the police. There's a segment of society that wants that. Whatever. People want a police department that's going to treat them with respect. There's nothing wrong with that. We want you to treat everyone with respect. And we want
hold people accountable and hold officers accountable for actions.
That's right. And, I look at the Rochester situation and the question that jumped out to me with the Rochester situation was, how come it took until now? This happened in March. And here we are in September. Now we're suspending those officers. There's a major breakdown in communication within the agency because it is public, now we're reacting. No, that goes back to the trust. You should be doing what you have to do. If the media calls and says, hey, what's going on with this? Those officers have been suspended while we're investigating this matter. Not, oh, now you're asking, so now we're suspending. We have to prove and lead by example when things happen. And I believe that when a life is taken in custody, when a life is taken, whether justified or not, it deserves the utmost scrutiny. Police have this amazing power to take someone's life, to take someone's freedom. We should comb over that with a fine-tooth comb. And your margin of error should be 0%. And if that margin of error creeps up to 0.1%, well, we need to investigate the hell out of it because this is someone's loved one and we need to provide them with the answers. And oftentimes the actions will be justified, but then there are going to be these moments where you're saying, no, it didn't have to go this way. And you have to be prepared to answer for that.
I think that the view that you have expressed is the view of the people for the most part. But I feel that a lot of officers do not have the view that you have. Would you be willing to go back in the ranks of the police department to work?
Baltimore Police Department?
Any?
I haven't decided that yet. I've been asked, and I haven't decided that yet because you are pushing a boulder up a cliff right now. Because unfortunately, because this debate has become so political, it does take top leadership to not continuously throw the police department and the police department leadership under the bus at every moment. It's the low-hanging fruit. So I don't know. And this is a sad testament of where we are today. There are a number of great police leaders who will not put their reputations on the line to go back in because they will be the first ones kicked out when and if someone does something stupid that they couldn't avoid. Challenges are going to exist. And I think that the conversation has to continue. And what I see are two sides to this. Unfortunately, it's this tug of war and people don't want to come to the middle. And I think if you have a conversation like we're having, people will come to the middle and understand, you know what, that actually makes sense. But it's like one side or the other. You either want to defund and abolish, or you want to go full-fledged, the police got to do what they got to do. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. You should be held accountable, and there should be an investigative review anytime someone in your custody has died or you had to take the life of someone. And it's a review, but we've allowed a lot of it to get so political. But the police departments also have to get better by not having these things become uncovered versus this is what we're dealing with and this is what our plan is to move forward through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you look at the case of Jacob Blake, right? And when you have the officer discharging 7 shots, to me, when I mean, when we get to shot number 6, 5, 6, 7, I mean, couldn't this have been completed with shot 1 or 2? Like, why so many shots? Why the officers so fearful?
Well, look, when I first saw that video, and I only watched it once or twice because it disgusted me, I was probably saying what many other people were saying, and many other police officers were probably saying, tackle him, tackle him, tackle him, tackle him.
Right.
And the way I described it, with the details I know, is if you had your gun out and this person was that much of a threat, and this is part of training, where it's this bravado that is taught, it's trained, it's learned behavior. The gun is out. We have to teach officers that you can reholster your weapon. You can de-escalate. You can move backwards and now go back to a hands-on. You were in a situation where you felt that you needed to be at this level of force. Now you recognize that you need to go back. So these are things that have to be implemented early on in training, because I'm looking at a scenario at that point where holstering up and tackling him is the best way, in my opinion, to do it. And, the people said, well, it was a knife in the car. Well, the object, and this is something I certainly learned in training, you don't let someone get back to the car. It's like you don't let someone go back into the house because you put them back into an unknown situation where you don't know what type of weapons might be available to them. So why, if this person is this much of a threat that you have your gun drawn, would you let them walk over to get in their vehicle? I just think that was once again another avoidable situation, in my opinion. And to let that many rounds go in someone's back, I mean, we're blessed that this person didn't pass away, Jacob.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, what he had in the car, what his previous criminal record is secondary. You don't know any of that at the moment of encounter. And if you want to keep him away from it, you had the ability to tackle him and not even allow him to get to his car, which ironically is something that probably happens every day in this country, and it doesn't go wrong, so we don't see videos of it.
Right.
And that's what should have happened in that scenario.
Yeah, there are countless times where I've been driving and I've seen officers in various stages of pulling someone over, and the fact that many people are heightened and concerned about the person being pulled over, whether they need to pull their phone out and try to record something. It really shows how wrong things are right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate.
And last thing I want to say on that is I guess the biggest challenge that I see, and you summed it up well, is that both sides, the police and the citizens, really have to be able to state their thoughts and their desires and be able to meet somewhere in the middle. Right. And I just think that one side, the officers, are not flexible to understanding or what they look at as relinquishing some of their power in some of these scenarios. And I when I look at the way that Kyle Rittenhouse was treated by the same police force, he had a weapon. Literally, he had blood on his hands. Literally, just killing someone, and people saying to the officers he killed someone, and this guy being treated better, and that is an understatement, than Jacob Blake. That, I think, that is part of the balancing act.
Yeah, it's a legit concern. It's a legit concern, and the imbalance and the disproportionate way in which you see this happening across the country, it raises those questions, and these are questions that we should be asking. And the implicit bias, the stereotypes, the racism, the prejudices, or what have you, are things that have to be talked about and have to be front of mind. Of course, safety is a priority and safety is number one, but we can't have these preconceived notions of certain demographics of people. And unfortunately, many of those people happen to be young Black men, and not even just young Black men, period. And we have to do better than that. And that has to change.
Yeah, we have a comment I want to go to get your thoughts on. And so can you see that?
Yeah, gentrification, municipal disinvestment plan, shrinkage, imminent jobs, housing, and impact of sanctuary cities. There's a lot of questions.
I guess these are.
I think James is bringing up systemic problems. These aren't go in on day one and the first 100 days fix these problems. Gentrification is the long game, and that goes back to creating jobs for people and going into disinvestment, municipal disinvestment, going back to specific investment. Mr. Wallace and I were actually talking about this today. Somebody asked this question on the walk today. And what Mr. Wallace is talking about is something that we share in common, where we are specifically carving out a portion of the budget to invest in Black investment in Baltimore City. We can't allow the city to become gentrified and let these areas that have been historically Black, that are historic, just go to waste and not reinvest in them and not give Black people the opportunity to invest in those areas, because we know that part of redlining and the long detrimental effect of redlining was our ability to get loans from banks. So it's things like that that have to be addressed through policy, and it's beyond a piece of paper of legislation. It's actuality. It's actually doing something about it. We're not a sanctuary city. So many people get that phrase wrong. Baltimore is a welcoming city, and we're a city built on immigrants. It's a town where the immigrants aren't taking jobs from people that would rather be working or that could be working them. We need to create more jobs and create an inclusive, diverse city, which this city was built upon, and not further segregated. So those are the types of policies that have to be instituted. And we've had the opportunity to do it over years. It just hasn't been done. And that's, I know, and Mr. Wallace knows, that it's an uphill battle as an independent candidate in a city that has voted for the Democratic nominee for 50 plus years. We understand that. I understand that. I'm not a politician. I didn't look at this and say, I wonder what my Democratic friends are going to feel like if I endorse. No, I'm not. I'm looking at, I wonder what we can really get done if he gets in office to make this city better and make it better for people. That first grader that's sitting in their living room right now doing Zoom, when they graduate from high school, they can look at the city differently than what a 10th grader is looking at it now.
Right.
And that's what we have to look at investing and do something, of course, about today's violence that is just destroying families and destroying the city. But it's not a flash in the pan. And I want to make this point real quick.
Sure.
You look at New York back in the 90s, 2,500 murders a year in the city of New York. And you look at the fact that now they're seeing violence creep up again, murders creep up again. Creep up for New York, again, is going over the 300 murder mark. They have seen unprecedented drops in their murder rate since the 90s. We had 353 murders as a high back in the early 90s. We had 348 last year. And that proportion is much higher last year because there are about 100 to 200,000 less residents than in the early 90s. My point with that is, we haven't seen the sustained reductions in homicides that other cities have enjoyed, like DC, like Los Angeles, like Chicago, New York City, and even Chicago for that matter, where when we see a creep up in our violent crime, our murders, we're right back where we've always been. So we don't want to see flash in the pan because a certain administration is in, the violence is suppressed. We want to really do things that eliminate the violent crime, the murder. And when I say eliminate, if we had the reductions that New York City, LA, or DC had from the 90s to today, that would be somewhere between an 87 and 93% reduction in the murder rate. Baltimore would have seen last year 40-something homicides. Just consider that. So it's not far-fetched. The opportunity to do that and make that a backstory as opposed to the forefront story in our city is something that we have to work to do. And the more people that work and the more opportunities at jobs and long-term income, we can actually see that. And again, that's long work. It's not an overnight thing, but good policies.
It's definitely not overnight. And of course, I've been speaking with TJ Smith. He is supporting Bob Wallace for mayor of Baltimore. And people can go to wallaceformayor.com. And I said earlier, I'm going to be speaking with him on Friday on the program. And so people can go to the website and find out more about Mr. Wallace. He is definitely a, someone that people may not know. And he has a plan and a vision. And TJ Smith has really explained a lot to us. And I look forward to speaking with Mr. Wallace about this. Anything else you want to say, sir, before we get out of here?
Well, I think you make a very interesting point. People say you don't know him, and that's interesting. We, as voters, have to take a more engaged approach into what we're doing and not vote for the popular candidate that you know. Realistically, the people that you know who've been in office are the reason we're having such a spirited dialogue right now. Get to know these folks who are running and understand that the reason you don't know him is because he's not a career politician. He's someone who's been behind the scenes trying to help support the city and create jobs in the city. His son, if you don't know, runs Power 52, which is a joint venture with Ray Lewis, an solar energy company that created jobs, plenty of jobs. Years ago, they started this in creating a new energy, a new industry of job opportunities. But more importantly, I used to always quote this well before him and I aligned and before I was even a candidate. It teaches people how to work, the responsibilities of how to work, so we can create a person who can have employment longevity. Because just simply giving someone a job without them knowing how to work, they're going to lose that job. And that negative reinforcement is going to stick with them. And that is what can also drive a person down that avenue of crime. So get to know Bob. The fact that you don't know who he is really a good thing, because he's not tied to the political system and structure that so many people have said we need to disrupt. We have to be bold and say, if we really want to make a jolt in things, we have to do things differently. So that's why I ran, and now that's why I'm supporting Bob Wallace. So I'm fired up, and make sure people get ready to vote. Get your ballots as soon as possible. We know what the national government's trying to do to suppress our vote. Make sure you're heard, because our city is depending on it.
Yes, it really is, and I am glad that you mentioned the voting. What do you recommend people do as far as voting? Voting in person? What do you recommend?
Well, during the primary, June 2nd, I was dismayed at how many people were at polling locations on voting day. There were only 6 in the city of Baltimore, and the lines were 2 hours long. And when you went up to it and you saw how many people, it looked like this enthusiasm to vote, but really wasn't enthusiasm to vote. It was the fact that there was just so few places available to vote. And I think the number was between 8,000 and 10,000 people that voted on election day. That's not a lot of people in the overall spectrum of things, but it felt like a lot because that was the only place to vote. And of course, a slower approach.
People that voted in person.
That voted in person.
Yeah.
So, and of course, a slower approach going in. People should be confident voting by mail. The ballots should start arriving towards the end of this month in early October. and they should bubble in Biden and Harris and Bob Wallace immediately and get that ballot back in the mail or at one of the drop box locations. And here's the good thing. Maryland is, in my opinion, the communications from the state board of elections to the actual voter, it seems to be okay. Where I signed up online, I got the communication via email that they received my request and I should get my ballot in the mail, that application process. When I did my mail in for the primary, I was able to go online and see that my ballot was received. So there's a checks and balances in place where you can track your ballot to ensure that it is in fact received. So early as possible to limit how many people congregate, because we have to recognize that this virus will still be around come election day, and we should reserve election day for those people who absolutely have to go out and do it.
Absolutely. It is very important, and I really don't want people to be dismayed by what the Trump administration is trying to do, and discouraging people or trying to really just negatively affect their opinion in the system.
Yeah. So the voting, I tell people all the time and kind of run the campaign this way. We're not, the traditional voting day of November 3rd, for all intents and purposes, does not exist. There's a voting period that will start as soon as those ballots are mailed out to you through November 3rd. So you literally will have that entire window to actually vote. So take advantage of that. Take advantage if you have to go in person to an early voting location. And I think that the Orioles ballpark is going to be one place for voting. So hopefully we're creative, and we should be creative to give people a fair opportunity to vote and take full advantage of it, because you look at some of the swing states in 2016, a few thousand votes are the reason that we're in a coronavirus crisis that we're in and have been in for the last several months. Your vote truly does count. And for all the people who I meet and see every single day that say, man, I voted for you, I wish you would have won. Well, I needed a whole lot more of you. So your vote does count. And if you aren't happy with the direction the city's headed and the current leadership, there are options on the table. And if you are happy, you have an option on the table as well. So but exercise your right.
Absolutely.
And as you see, look at that. Look at what you're looking at. That's part of the problem. The Baltimore City Board of Elections has yet to finalize its voting centers. However, 31 ballot drop boxes will be available starting in late September. And I don't know whose fault this is, so I'm not casting any blame, but we were last to get our ballots in the mail. I got my ballot in the mail for the primary a week before the election day. And here we are again, where you look at this long list in Baltimore County of locations, and we're still trying to figure out stuff here in the city.
Look at that list.
An absolute shame. Look at it. And we don't have a single location. So, an exhaustive list in Anne Arundel County is available.
Right.
It's so exhaustive that you need to go to another link to get that location. But Baltimore City, we ain't figured things out yet. Shame.
Yeah, and to your point, that is, I guess that is why one of the main reasons why we are needing new leadership. Is that a fair?
We're looking at processes. The reason your trash piles up and your days get skipped, the reason we've suspended recycling, process. The reason you're saying, well, how come this 311 complaint hasn't been addressed? It's process errors. And this is again, it comes down to a culture of how leadership goes. So job training is big. Yes, Anthony. And I don't know if that's a delayed comment, but yes, people have to be trained to do their jobs so that they can keep their jobs, and they can create a blueprint so they can know what they're going to do. Like, I know that I can aspire to be a manager, and here's the blueprint of how to get there. Here's the training that I need, or whatever it might be. But just simply, and I use this example often too, if we just dropped a new industry or warehouse in a high unemployment area of the city, and we just hired a bunch of people in that community to work there without any training, in 3 months, how many of them do you think are still going to be working there? We know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So if we know better, then we do better. And we have to teach people how to work and how to respect work, how to respect their employer, how to understand that we know that this is a crazy time, that you have to homeschool your child. But don't call us at 9:05 when you were supposed to be here at 9 o'clock and say you can't make it because you couldn't find somebody to homeschool. You knew that at 8:30 you were having trouble.
Absolutely.
But some people need to be taught that. And it's nothing wrong with us understanding that, because we do have a bit of a gap in learning where, you're not necessarily learning that stuff in high school, and you might not have the parents who taught you that. So we have to take that and understand, if that's one of the big reasons employers are telling us we aren't retaining people, use that to create a plan to ensure we're educating people better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really appreciate you talking with us.
Always
and
a pleasure,
I definitely want to speak with you again.
Anytime.
Definitely closer to election time, and talk about some of the national as well as the Baltimore elections. I guess in November. I'd like to do that.
Well, anytime, my brother. I appreciate you. Appreciate your platform to keep the people informed, and hopefully everyone takes heed to the advice and does their research, gets registered to vote, and gets engaged.
Absolutely. You brought up some good points, and I definitely encourage people to do just that. Do your research and make an informed decision. I definitely don't want you to leave with the thought that people should just vote for someone just because they know their name. You're right, because I think the way I said that, it may have come off like that. Definitely not that. And I definitely recognize the importance of someone who has not been caught up in the system and is not necessarily tainted by the stink and the stench that can be politics. So I definitely want people to have an open mind about that.
So I'm good. Let me tell you, brother, I'm so good. My son and I went fishing and bike riding the other day. He caught 7 fish and he was happy as can be. And Daddy was happy as can be, because that's my fishing partner. And that's like the first thing I did. June 2nd was the election. June 3rd, I knew I hadn't won. June 4th, I think I'm conceding. I think June 5th, I was on a pier somewhere. So, I'm trying to do the best I can. I've had an opportunity to talk to some kids this summer about my process. And kids are brutally honest with you. So you lost. I'm like, well,
that's how they carry.
I'm a winner in my own heart, but it's all good. It doesn't defeat you. It just makes you better, and it's how you use the experiences that you had to become better. And hopefully, we are all better as a result.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, we've been talking with TJ Smith, the Diamond K Show. Once again, you definitely have an open invite anytime you want to come through, but I definitely want you here in November. Yes. I know November 3rd is going to be busy for you, but if you can carve out a few minutes,
we'll work it out. Let's work it out, because here's the thing. Even the evening of November 3rd, ain't nobody going to have answers anytime soon.
Yeah. People have to understand we're not going to have results November 3rd. It's going to be more like election week than it's going to be election day.
Yeah. So, all right, my man. Thank you very much, and be safe. Continue blessings.
Thank you. You as well. Okay. All right. So TJ Smith joining us. Definitely want to wish him luck and all that good stuff. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and summarize some of this stuff that has been going on, and we'll be back right after this.
Oh, my nigga Diamond K on the check-in. Salute Diamond K, radioonfire.com. Let me check on his site. Hold on a second. That's my homie from B-More.
You are now streaming worldwide on radioonfire.com and the Radio on Fire app.
Diamond K, are you moving to the ATL? I know you were talking about that, man, before the pandemic.
Giving you more talk, more news, and more music. It's Radio on Fire.
Okay, there you go. RadioOnFire.com. That's the homie Diamond K.
Thank you for listening to Radio on Fire.
I see High Roller Records, Jay Jackson Live, the Diamond K Show, of course. Yeah, folks, make sure you check out my homie RadioOnFire.com. That's Diamond K.
Follow us on all social media at Radio on Fire.
Welcome back to the program. Your man Diamond K in here. And we talked earlier with TJ Smith. We talked about a variety of things. We really had a chance to really get into a lot of stuff. The election in Baltimore, the national election. We talked about Kenosha. We talked about police accountability and reform. And a lot of the challenges facing Baltimore. And there are many. I think that they are all rooted in economics. People needing money, the allocation of money that are supposed to go to various things that politicians have not done right by the citizens of Baltimore. And there have been many. We also talked about people doing their research on candidates and not just voting for people because they knew their names. That is something as well. And I've never pushed that. But at the same time, I feel that if you are running for an office, if you want people to vote for you, you need to let people know who you are, and we need to be aware. And some people are going to dive in deep and do the deep research. Some people are going to be surface level. So the information has to be available, and you have to make it available for people. But people definitely need to do the research. So we're going to be talking to the independent candidate for mayor in Baltimore, Bob Wallace. We're going to be talking to him on the program on Friday, 7 p.m., radioonfire.com/live, facebook.com/radioonfire, also on Twitter, also on Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Apple Podcasts, etc., etc. So we're definitely going to be talking about that. And the other story that we talked about at the top of last hour, was Trump admitting to downplaying the coronavirus threat in some unreleased audio in these new tapes. The president admitted to Bob Woodward that he concealed some critical details he knew about the coronavirus, saying that he always wanted to play it down. And he knew early, this is in February, he knew that the coronavirus was dangerous, highly contagious, airborne, and deadly. Yet, to the American people, he said that it was nothing, something that was going to go away. Said that it was a Democratic hoax. It was the new Russian hoax. He said a lot of things along those lines. Trump admitted on tape that the virus was 5 times more deadly than the typical flu. This is on February 7th. February 7th. This is why I call it the Trump virus. Trump's comments privately are different than the comments that he made to the American public around this same time period. The president said to the American people that it was like a flu. Here's why I'm hitting this so hard. Here's why this is so murderous. Because people that believe and hang on the every word of this president did not take it serious. Still to this day, do not take it serious. That's why you have people at the bikers at the Sturgis rally not wearing masks, and you have over 250,000 people that have been affected by this just from there. Because this person affects this person, it's highly contagious and it's airborne. So multiple people can be infected by this. So there's a book coming out. Woodward was writing a book, and he did 18 interviews with the president, which were all recorded with President Trump's permission. So for those MAGA supporters going to say, well, you legally recording the president knew. Here's the thing. Here's how crazy this is. The president knew he was being recorded and said these things. Now, the deniers are going to do what they do, which is deny and make excuses. But Joe Biden, of course, Hillary Clinton, criticizing the president for this behavior. Many Republicans still making excuses for this behavior. This is not a Democrat or Republican or independent thing. This is a human being thing. And the president has the solemn duty to protect the American people. And he's going to try to tell you, and supporters are going to try to tell you, that he didn't want to cause a panic. Okay? A panic. We are in a pandemic now. So there's a way you can communicate things, but you have to be straight and level with the American people. You have to let them know the seriousness of this, because you can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle once it's all spread out over the sink. It's out, right? We know that it's serious. But many of the people that hang on his every word are believing what he said in the beginning, which is that it was nothing. That's why they're not wearing masks. That's why they're not socially distant. And that's why this thing is spreading and has spread across not only this country, but the world. So that's where we are. And the coronavirus, Trump warned this himself on January 28th that it was the biggest national security threat. However, during his public appearances, he minimized the threat. And to me, furthermore, behind the scenes, he did not do anything to help stop this, other than Trump supporters going to say, oh man, he closed the borders to China. Okay, right? But with regards to PPE, making states fight amongst themselves for PPE and not encouraging people to wear masks, half-heartedly mocking people wearing masks, reporters wearing masks, holding rallies where people are maskless, his actions and his words just disrespected and placed in danger the American people. Here's where we are right now. We're going to continue talking about this, obviously. RadioFire.com, your man Diamond K, the Diamond K Show.com. And, of course, you can advertise with us. Connect your message with our engaged audience of over 350,000 listeners and viewers per month. RadioFire.com/advertise is where you go to get started. You can follow the program on Spotify or your favorite podcast network. New shows drop daily. RadioFire.com, the DiamondKShow.com, 7 p.m. We are RadioFire.com/live. You can always support the program via Cash App. Of course, your donations help us continue to do what we do here on the program. And that is to bring you independent news, progressive opinion on politics, social issues, entertainment, and so much more. For booking or media request, you can always contact me at djdiamondk@gmail.com. Yes, I'm going to do that. And also, I wanted to highlight this, and we can just do that. Radio on Fire is a digital outlet. So we bring digital news broadcasts, social media content, and a lot more. And you know, the thing about it is that when you are a growing outlet, we're always adding programming to the live schedule and the broadcast schedule. I'm here weekdays, 7 p.m. The Radio on Fire sports program, which is Sports on Fire, that is Mondays at 8 p.m. The We Live in Atlanta podcast with Jay Jackson and Nanette The Truth Hurts is Saturdays at 2 p.m. The On Fire Mix show, 3 p.m. on Saturdays. His and Her show, live Sundays at 5 p.m. And, of course, I Want Luscious TV, live Sundays, 11 p.m. Now, we will be adding more programs to the lineup and all that good stuff. So I definitely wanted to run that down and do that. Until next time, if you see it, then you can be it. It is all about having vision. Man, Diamond K, I'm out of here. I will see you guys tomorrow.